This documentary shows the stories of how people healed themselves. It encompasses nature, the body, the mind, the soul, and our energetic presence in the world. I have a friend, Jennifer, and she had her own healing journey, just like I have. I just said to her, I want to go on the road and I want to record stories about how people heal.
So we headed out on an adventure or a challenge maybe to find whomever we could that would talk to us about ways that they heal. You know, we didn't set parameters on that. We're both very personable people. We like to talk to people. We're very interested in what people have to share. We just headed out with the thought that we'll just start talking to people, and it worked. Talking to one person who said, oh my gosh, you got to talk to this person. And then, you know, we just found people that were just so more than willing to share their experiences, pass that on to other people.
Everything was so serendipitous. We went one place that took us another place, that took us another place, that took us another place. Could you tell me your full name?
My name is James Jones.
And James, what do you do for a living?
I have a business called Be Fit Be Able, where I help disabled people exercise all over the world.
Your first name?
I'm Martha.
And Martha, where do you work?
I work for Southwest Center for Independence in Durango.
What do you think healing is?
I think healing is a host of things. Healing is just not about just being made whole, but it's about being made to understand where you are, who you are, and what you are, without a doubt.
Fantastic. What do you do for a healing practice?
I meditate, first of all.
My definition of healing is feeling good about your life, no matter what part of you got hurt or broken or trounced on. Feeling good about what you're doing in your life and having friends and having people who want to be with you, who love you, and who are not paid to be with you.
I have a project that I'm working on currently. It's called Healing States. This project is about going around the United States and finding inspiring stories and teaching people things like this. Things about yoga and meditation, ways to teach them how to get back in touch with themselves.
I see it as sort of a process. It's not just kind of one thing where you're healed from something. It's an ongoing thing. Health issues are just like little roadblocks to kind of open your heart or expand, from.
Your heart, every time it beats, it creates an electric current, and that creates an electromagnetic field. And in fact, the heart field is measurable. It can be measured by devices that can be easily accessed.
Maybe we could Google best way to travel the United States.
For a person to be healthy.
And then later on, when you really don't have insurance, or you really, don't want to grow up, have your kid grow up and taking medicine all the time. So then that's when you're like, oh, hey mom, what was that thing that you made me? And what do I do?
For me, at least, healing is kind of getting your curiosity back online and kind of wanting to know more. And I think that that's an important ingredient to healing in general.
And so your field is pulsing with different frequencies, and each emotion has its own particular frequency or set of frequencies.
Well, for me, healing is a lifestyle. We're not only healing ourselves with this way of agriculture, we're healing the land, we're trying to help heal the people, and I think that's what healing comes down to, is really it's just getting yourself back to that point of 100%.
That Mark can kind of tell us about what's going on in the body.
To me, healing is physical, spiritual, mental, and emotional.
Decluttering the mind is a lot like decluttering your home in some regards.
And just because we're talking about things spiritually, which we would think would be for our benefit and for all of us to be better people, it doesn't always work out that way.
Just by being present there, because these wonderful mirrored neurons, they start to hook up.
A mirroring neuron teaches you how to survive.
We're at Green Acres Hemp Farm, right outside of Alamosa, Colorado.
Much more than that, using the breath. In many cultures, they believe that the breath is energy to the body.
I work with animals, and my motto is, let me be the voice of your animal.
With medicine, less is more, usually.
We heal ourselves.
And that's where addiction can take people.
They want you to have a balance.
I thought she was crazy.
Yeah, she did.
Like, imagine you have like an iPhone in your brain.
We've been making a limbo lotion, and we've been curing everything from eczema to psoriasis.
No, wait a minute. Is this on your documentary?
Yes.
Okay, there you go.
I see a yellow ducky, like a rubber ducky of some sort, or like a toy, squeaky toy type thing.
I just want her one.
We're on the internet. We can say whatever the frick we want. They're not. We know we're not puppies.
I came up and said, hey, I know you don't know me.
Okay, of course.
Give me your definition of what you think healing is.
Becoming whole. Know when you're not healing because you feel there's something missing. That's what it feels like. When you're in pain, it feels like there's something missing. And when you're moving toward health, you can feel that. You can feel that you're moving forward. I don't think we're ever 100% complete, but it's always an evolution for me.
I see it as sort of a process. It's not just kind of one thing where you're healed from something. It's an ongoing thing that I think it's important to seek support in. I think it's very difficult or impossible to do it all on our own. I think it's about kind of a relational process.
You're not trying to pull it all apart as much as you are looking at the whole picture.
Just about everybody has some things that they deal with on a regular basis. And it's, to me, it's like having brown eyes or a pink tongue or something. I mean, it's just how you are with your world.
Feeling safe to explore what something means to you in the healing process and not just being adverse and afraid of it.
But if I didn't have allergies, I wouldn't be very interested. I mean, look at this. Anyway, but I mean, it's just how you deal with stress or how you deal with other people.
Health issues are just like little roadblocks to kind of open your heart or expand, from.
So can you give me your full name?
And Linda Baldwin.
And where are we today?
We are in Tucson, Arizona.
At your institute or at?
This is the office I have at the University of Arizona. Your heart, every time it beats, it creates an electric current, and that creates an electromagnetic field. And in fact, the heart field is measurable. It can be measured by devices that can be easily accessed, and it can stretch out like several feet. So this is a biofield, an electromagnetic field, and it doesn't just stay stationary, it pulses according to how your heart rate is changing. And how your heart rate changes depends on your emotions and your state of ease or state of stress. And so your field is pulsing with different frequencies, and each emotion has its own frequency, particular frequency or set of frequencies, so that your field will be sending out information about how you feel. And your field can affect another person's field. So how do you measure the field? Well, I went to Scripps Institute in San Diego. They have something called a SQUID, which stands for Superconducting Quantum Interference Detector. And it picks up, it detects very, very low energy fields, because the heart field is low energy, but it can measure it. So I've done experiments to see how Reiki affects heart rate variability, and also both people giving it and people receiving it. And other people have also done experiments to see how receiving Reiki affects your heart rate and your heart rate variability. And they show that when you receive Reiki, heart rate usually goes down and heart rate variability increases. There's more variation in the heart rate, and that is healthy, because the more variation there is, the more that means that your heart can adjust and adapt to changing conditions.
Due to depression for a good portion of my life, when it was time for me to find my path, there was all these little events that got me into herbs for healing the depression and alternative methods, and then all of a sudden I started seeing a lot of information on Reiki. And you know, when you see something a few times, it kind of clicks, like, well, maybe I need to spend some more time looking into this, and that's what I did. And then after, I don't know, it was probably about a year or so, I found a teacher, and it just kind of snowballed from there.
I did a physics degree in England, and then I got more into physiology, and I did a PhD also in England on atherosclerosis, or hardening of the arteries. So I was very much a traditional physicist, physiologist. And then I came to the States. I went to Columbia to do a PhD, and then I came to the University of Arizona after 2 years at Columbia. And I was working on rats here, and I got into what's called the microcirculation, or the tiny, tiny little blood vessels that give nutrients to all the tissues. And we were interested in what governs how quickly and how easily different sized and different charged molecules can get from the blood into the tissue. And so I was also interested in inflammation. How does inflammation affect this process? So I was working actually at the VA hospital in Tucson then. I was at the university, but my lab was at the VA, and I was doing experiments on rats. Some of them had inflammation, some of them didn't. And we were looking at effects on the blood vessels and the intestine. And then I moved to the University of Arizona, and my experiments didn't work anymore, because instead of the rats that received the inflammatory mediator like histamine getting inflammation in the blood vessels in the gut, we also saw the control animals that just got saline. They also showed inflammation when we moved to the university, whereas at the VA, just the rats that received the histamine were showing inflammation. So we were very puzzled. And the only thing that had changed was where the animals were kept. And I went down there and I found it was much more noisy than at the VA. Lots of people coming in and out, slamming doors, lots of machinery turning on and off, keys jangling. And I thought maybe the rats are stressed. So I did some experiments, deliberately putting them in a very quiet room, and they didn't get the inflammation that the rats in the noisy rooms got. So that made me very interested in stress and completely changed my field. And so I'm very interested in how stress affects the body and physiology and psychology as well. And I'm also interested in how you can reduce stress. And how I got interested in energy healing or Reiki was because I needed somebody to help me analyze data. And I put an ad in the university newspaper, and somebody applied for the job who I hired, and it turned out that she was a Reiki master. And I'd never heard of Reiki before, had no idea what it was, but she was very persuasive, and she taught me how to do Reiki, and actually other people in my lab as well. And she said, why don't we do Reiki on the rats and see if it reduces their stress in the noisy environment? So we did get a grant from NIH to see if we could use Reiki on the rats to see if it reduced the inflammation, and we found that it did. We also had a group of rats that had sham Reiki and a group of rats that had no treatment, and they didn't show this recovery that the Reiki rats showed. So that was really the first thing that made me very, very interested in Reiki and the science behind it.
Can you talk a little bit about your own personal experience?
Same thing happens. I had a really bad physical reaction, but they didn't believe me, so I just stopped taking it. And a friend of mine goes, "You need to go see Rose." So she's the lady down at the herb shop, and I went down there, and she's got these lovely tea blends and different specific teas that you can try to help with all of that. And I looked into Ayurveda, and between that and I finally started feeling better, so I started walking and taking the herbs from Rose and changing my diet, just all of this stuff at one time, and I wasn't depressed anymore.
So we were looking at practitioners that you can actually do reconnective healing on yourself. They usually do it on other people, but you can do it on yourself. So we wanted to see what happens to the reconnective healers as they do it, and also to Reiki practitioners, and then as controls, just untrained people. And we looked at their heart rate variability, and we also looked at blood flow in the hands. And that device you can see right over there, that is called a laser Doppler perfusion imager. And it uses a laser to scan the hand, and then it can give you an image of the perfusion, what's called how much blood is in the blood vessels in the fingertips.
This is my husband, Colin since 2008.
You are both cancer survivors.
Yes, when I was 22 years old, I'd come from a somewhat athletic background and healthy, I would think, but I was often realizing that I was getting tired. Something inside said, maybe look to see if there's something I can do to improve my health. And at the time, Adele Davis and the health food stores were just starting really with a few basics, and the book rack had an Adele Davis book, and she was heavy on vitamins and wheat germ and yogurt and things like that. And so I tried that, and I think I got maybe a little better, but not still. There was still maybe something else. Came across another book, because I like to read, and it mentioned fasting. And it wasn't a total water, just with water, it was with broth. But I instantly felt a difference in my mind. I felt some kind of awakening, and at the same time, health improvement. So I knew I was onto something. Like many people, I think, a desire to eat well, but there were times where my lifestyle was not that way at all either, so there was always that struggle. There was a time when I felt I had a lump, and it was diagnosed that there was nothing, but I went for a second check on it, and it was testicular cancer, which I probably, maybe if I'd been more into the health part of it, I would have maybe taken a different route, but I had the surgery. However, I did not, do the chemo or the radiation, and I was told that that was not a wise decision.
It's the story of my health, and it's called Sick to Death, because I am mad as hell at the medical industry and all the craziness that has gone on with it.
However, someone did advise me, well, you could have the radiation and die, you could have the radiation and get better, you could not do anything and die, you could not do anything and get better. So it seemed like there was more of a choice.
So what I have discovered is that I have had thyroid disease my entire life, but I wasn't diagnosed till I was 32, and my thyroid went berserk. And then after that, I drank radioactive iodine, my thyroid was killed, and I was prescribed Synthroid, which I took for 20 years. Synthroid and other levothyroxine brands. And it kept me sick. And when I moved back to New Orleans from New York, I discovered that there was this wealth of information that was already known about thyroid disease. Had been known for decades.
Where did you find that?
I found it in a medical book and a doctor. And I realized that the entire medical system has completely fallen down on the job relative to this illness, which is huge. It's absolutely huge. And it impacts, hundreds of millions of people. And of course, it's predominantly women.
You could not do anything and die. You could not do anything and get better. So it seemed like there was more of a choice. And I chose not to do that. Found out later, as they followed up on me for 5 years or so, that there was a whole bunch of us or there was a group that were not doing the radiation and chemo, and they were keeping an eye on us, I think, to see. So I didn't feel as alone. And I felt support and encouraged that. I had a friend that had the similar thing. He chose, the radiation, but he saw it more as the radiation was beating up the bad guys, and I didn't see it that way. I saw it more as the radiation's going to hurt me, the good cells. So that was just my choice. And anyways, I eventually I have not had a problem since then, as far as any cancer, as far as I know.
So it just talking to Rose and with her helping me learn about the herbs that you need for depression, and changing my diet with the Ayurveda and the exercising, and in the long run it helped me to heal myself. It's just switching out all of the garbage stuff for better things. But even if you just change a few things, it's better than nothing.
And when people have reduced anxiety, depression, stress, do they return to homeostasis better? I mean, that makes them more productive? Can you draw any conclusions from that?
Oh, for sure it makes them more productive. In fact, I work with biofeedback as well as Reiki. And with biofeedback, we focus a lot on the breathing, because most people breathe shallow and fast. And if you control your breathing, it helps control what's called your autonomic nervous system, or the fight or flight response. And breathing and also visualization, kind of positive emotions, both of those will help you become more balanced with your fight or flight response. And when that happens, it does all kinds of things for you. I mean, it reduces anxiety, it does keep you in homeostasis so that you don't fly off the handle. You're more in neutral, and from neutral you can kind of pretty much choose where you want to go.
My story's long too, but I was 29, 30 years old when I was diagnosed with cancer. And I was so foggy-headed, I couldn't think clearly either, So since then I've learned cancer is systemic, so even though it was in my head, it wasn't all in my head. I was thinking,
What do you mean by cancer is systemic?
Well, it's... I have been taught since then that cancer is in the bloodstream. The tumor's not the cancer. It's a place that's been roped off, or the blood is protecting, a lot of bad cells from, I guess, taking you back to the earth too quickly. But you can't isolate a poison or something going on in the bloodstream, because the blood travels everywhere, Just removing a tumor, what are you going to do about the cancer now? That's what Gary Tunsky used to ask, if you remove the tumor, what are you going to do next now? And so it causes you to think a little bit. I was offered surgery, and when I asked if that would remove the cancer, glad I asked that question, they said, oh no, we can't guarantee that, So I thought, well, I've heard about alternatives. I want to seek it out. I'd read enough to have hope in other areas.
So I was really okay when I thought it was just me, and I was like, I can deal with my own shit. But when I realized that there were so many other people involved, I was like, fuck it. I'm going after the pharmaceuticals.
So your doctor said you were going to die, and you watched your mom pop a pill every day since your mother was born.
Correct. My sister. She got high blood pressure since then, and so I don't want to be on any. The only pill I took was my vitamins. I didn't want to take any type of pill whatsoever, and so that scared me. Either I change my hours, which I can't with the position I was in, or I need to find something else. So I it was a hard decision, but I told them that I gotta go. I'll train whoever and, make that life change so that I don't have to pop a pill every day.
Alisha Nicole Dungan.
And your full name?
Vanlan Beaumont.
How'd you two meet?
We didn't know each other when we started this, which was pretty unique, right? Most people started with their best friend or significant other or whatnot. We had no idea who each other were. I thought she was crazy.
Yeah, she did. I came over and said, hey, I know you don't know me, but we just got screwed by the same person, so why don't we, get together and do something?
I was just a stay-at-home mom, basically, and making stuff out of my house. We didn't have a lot of money, so we were just making stuff, making do. And
what were you making out of your house?
Different teas, oils, things for Christmas, just different things like that.
Tell me, where are we today? What business are you two building together?
Down to earth.
And what does that all include?
Natural healing, organic, living a healthy life, For people that don't have insurance, we didn't have insurance before. Like, she didn't for a long time. And then I didn't when I told Target bye, because it was, bad for my health. And then, so we were no insurance, two girls that,
kids. and started just making stuff.
So oils,
herbs, teas,
lotions.
Yeah, all of a sudden you have you go from I did it when I left California and left the graphic design industry. I went from having a lot of money to not having any money. Van did it when she left Target. She was making a lot of money, and then she went to having no money. And when you do that, you still you're able to afford all this stuff, and you can get your lotions and your soaps and all this fun stuff, and you can afford all this stuff, and then all of a sudden you can't afford it, so why not? I've been studying it to begin with, so let's try what we've been studying.
We messed up a lot. Making soaps, making bath bombs, like for example, our first bath bomb was like a cow patty.
True story.
Yeah.
So you're self-taught.
Yeah.
And how do you find what you're doing? I mean, how do you make
just lots of research? I mean, you can Google stuff all day long, but there's so many different things on the internet, and not all of it's true. There's a lot of books that you read. I actually started with the Bible, is where my studies started. I was like 12, 11, fixing to make my first confirmation, and asking my Sunday school teachers, what's frankincense and myrrh? Really? Well, that's awesome. I'd get gold, but and nobody knew. Nobody could tell me. Everybody was like, I don't know, just that's just what they brought, And no, that's not good enough for me. I want to know why. And I started researching then when I was young, and back then, I think AOL was just now coming out, like the chat rooms and stuff, were just now happening. Drove my mom crazy because I was trying so hard to research all this stuff, and she was like, what are you researching? What are you looking up? Alisha, this is weird,
Mind you, on her side of the family, they're all doctors. So her dad's a doctor, her brothers are doctors, so they are like in the, Western medicine kind of deal. And
so here I am looking up frankincense and myrrh.
She was not the ugly duckling, but
the black sheep.
Yeah, the black sheep. There you go, of her family, I wish mine was like that. Mine was just because I grew up, I was sick, and mom and dad, made me drink nasty stuff all day long,
Tea.
Yeah. Like decoctions and stuff like that they make on the stove. So I'll walk in and the house smells. And I'm like, this is great. I'll have friends coming over.
Your mom's scraping her back.
Yeah, oh, you're coughing. Let me do the scratch in the back for you. And remember going to the doctor, and I'm having all these like things on my back, and so it was that came along. So I always grew up with it, just never appreciated it. It's nasty. It hurts, whatever you want to call it, And then later on, when you really don't have insurance, or you really, don't want to want to grow, have your kid grow up and taking medicine all the time. So then that's when you're like, oh, hey mom, what was that thing that you made me? You know, and what do I do? Because Zoe has a cough and I don't want to take her to the doctor or whatever. So that came about my late in my life. So.
And did you feel like those practices worked?
Oh yeah, it did. Back then it was because it tastes so bad that after I drank it I felt better. Or it hurt so bad that after it was done I felt better. But no, now it's like, okay, it actually really works. However, back then crazy it was, it actually helps out, works a lot.
I think science has come a long ways too, where it's starting to prove a lot of things. And with that proof, people are a little bit more accepting.
So as moms, can you tell me what product you would recommend for people to have in their homes, something that you think has really worked well in your homes?
Eucalyptus?
To
make yourself a home chest rub, coconut oil.
Coconut oil, that's something good that everybody should have in their house,
in the kitchen.
As long as you're not allergic to it, you should definitely have coconut oil laying around. Different, like chamomile. I mean, chamomile, I think specifically because I have a baby at home, I can do all sorts of different things with it, and it's safe, for a 1-year-old even. I'm okay with that, with her drinking a chamomile tea.
Ginger. That's what I've been dousing myself with.
With ginger?
Yeah.
Why is that?
I'm pregnant. I have a sour stomach.
Oh.
She's pregnant.
I'm eating things I normally would eat, and I'm like, oh my goodness, it's not digesting.
That and her thyroid's a little messed up too.
And ginger helps the thyroid?
Everybody should be reading the information because there is a gigantic percentage of people, probably 60% of people, that are not diagnosed at all. People go their entire lives never figuring out what's wrong with them. I was an activist first, from birth. I've always had social justice leanings, inclinations, behaviors my whole life. And then I picked up a Super 8 camera in 1991 or 1990, something like that. And I realized I had a weapon. Well, I was incredibly shocked to realize that all the information pre-existed. I was shocked and really pissed when I realized how easy it would have been to diagnose me if somebody had ever looked at a medical book. And then I was shocked to realize that there was this medication that had been around since the turn of the last century and that was very effective. And then I was shocked to realize, how many prescriptions were written for levothyroxine drugs. And then I was shocked to realize how much the pharmaceuticals had impacted my life without me realizing it at all. And I think that's true of most Americans. I think we understand that there is this kind of big evil, that's on the periphery of our world. But when you really start looking at it and you realize that it's actually impacting your own daily life, and I don't mean just mine, but I mean, like everybody's daily life, that is quite shocking.
And do you think the medical profession is somehow underhanded in this? Or it's hard for me. I can make the leap for pharmaceuticals. It seems hard for me to make the leap for the medical side of it.
Well, I'll give you a couple of simple examples so that will help you. Is we teach pharmacology. We don't teach natural medicine. We teach pharmacology in the schools. So if a doctor learns pharmacology, he doesn't learn how to cure. He learns how to give medicine, or she. And it's only the integrative and the alternative and the homeopathic and the naturopathic doctors that are going in another direction. And then they are targeted for going in that direction because they are in opposition to the money that the pharmaceuticals make. The other thing is if you take a nonprofit organization like the American Thyroid Association, they are the ones that release the guidelines to doctors. And their biggest sponsors are the levothyroxine drugs. And the information that they released last September was that any doctor that doesn't prescribe levothyroxine drugs can lose their license. and regardless of how the patient feels. And if a patient continues to have symptoms while they're on levothyroxine drugs, as I did for 20 years, they need a mental health referral.
Hypothyroid is an emotional problem. That's how it starts. The thyroid shuts down. Something going on with the pituitary and everything. And he had that take on that. So I think that's interesting. Yeah.
I looked around and I saw that so many people had these chronic problems, disorders, diseases, and they were taking loads and loads of medications with side effects. And I wanted to educate people and give them tools that they could use to help heal themselves rather than depending on drugs. So basically my mission is to do research myself into these tools and how helpful they are, and teach other people how they can use them.
So to me, those are super, super clear examples of how corrupt everything is. They market all the time, and it's all in the guise of research. So it's so easy to go into a doctor's office and tell him or her, prescribe this drug, and here's this little ditty you're going to get for doing it. And it could be money, or it could be gifts, it could be anything, but some little something kickback, then they're going to do it because it makes their life easier, particularly if they're only spending 6 minutes with their client. I would just like to say that, the things that have helped me the most in life and in my health have been homeopathic, naturopathic, integrative medicine, Chinese medicine, herbs, the things that are more alternative and the things that are more curative.
And this is what we started off with. That's it.
That's it.
This is it.
This had all of our herbs and oils in it.
In one,
this is in one little container.
What she brought in, and
this is what we started with. And then you saw all the herbs on the wall now. Like, there's no way we could fit anything in here anymore.
Our mission statement is just to help people. Is to help people in general. So we treat our customers as if it is our family, and if we are to help them get over whatever they're trying to get over, it's like treating our own. And local honey.
What is it?
Local honey.
Local honey.
For allergies.
It's got to be local.
In our household, probably 90 to 95% what's grown by my neighbors or by us. And it's grown like a friend. Is our neighbor, and he has very healthy soil. And that's where we get our vegetables, or friend, or our other neighbors. Our eggs are raised on very healthy grass. They're completely, truly free range. They go to bed at night so they don't get eaten, but they're out eating all day. So the eggs are really healthy. So in the morning we start our day with raw eggs, goat milk, kefir, and none of our dairy is pasteurized or homogenated. So we have kefir and whey, goat milk whey in a smoothie, and then we juice or eat or put in a blender whole vegetables or fruit. It's all local. So that's what we have for breakfast, and that's pretty much, when you have a breakfast like that, you don't really need much else.
What do you do as a healing practice for yourself?
I eat. We eat. And in my house, you're not from here, but my house is known here for food. We eat in our household probably 90 to 95% what's grown by my neighbors or by us.
Antonio Garcia.
Okay. And you're telling us about OSHA?
OSHA is a root we use it as an antibiotic. It's been used for so many generations, even before the penicillin came along. The natives used to use, Native Americans and people from this region use it for many, many generations. And you use it for like any kind of infections, stomach infections. Let's say it cleanses your system. Cleanses your organs, your blood stream. It's good for headaches. It's good for cold. bronchitis. You drink it as a tea, you make tea out of it.
Okay.
Or you can soak it in rubbing alcohol for like 2 weeks, and then you use it for illnesses like arthritis. There's many uses. You use it in the family for many generations. It's passed on from families to families, and it's you never know how good it was until you start selling it, and then people, they're familiar with it, they tell you the reason why they use it for. You can also keep spiders away in the house. You can keep mice away. In places where they have rattlesnakes, they can keep rattlesnakes away. If you go fishing in an area where they are rattlesnakes, keep some in your pocket or in your socks. Keep the rattlesnakes away.
Okay.
The bears will use it for healing, where they need to heal themselves. They can rub themselves against the bush, or they can use it. They found a bear in the wild that was shot, and they found out that the bear was next to the osha plant. They chewed some of the leaves, and it was trying to put some on the roots. So this, I mean, I can go on and on. I can tell you. I mean, I haven't written a book yet, but I have intentions to write something on this, because the more I expose it to the people, the more I learn.
Right.
And where do you find it?
It grows here on the hills, at the foot of the hills, at this altitude. You can probably find it in New Mexico also. It's just in the region. Somehow it grows in the region. You know, it spreads so easy. But in most cases, you find it where there's water, along the creeks, you know, along the places where there's a lot of water. It seems to grow better.
So do you just go and harvest it?
I'm Jim Strang.
Lisa Strang.
And where are we today?
We're at Green Acres Hemp Farm, right outside of Alamosa, Colorado. We got our start, a friend of ours down in Florida has Ancient Orange from Vietnam, and we were visiting him one day, and he had a cream that he gets, and it's like $500 a month for the cream, but he can only use it a couple times a day, and it didn't really do anything but help with the itching. I got a hold of some hemp and made a lotion, and within 2 weeks it had cured it dried him up and they went away. And so we moved here to Colorado, bought us a farm, and we've been making a limbo lotion, and we've been curing everything from eczema to psoriasis, and we've also had 2 claims of shingles that people have cured now, so we're waiting for some more results on that.
That when I turned 18, I had arthritis in my hands, and I had eczema, I had back problems, I developed a dermoid tumor, which if you know about that, it's a tumor that your body develops on its own. It's actually a mutation of your body. It's kind of like the first warning sign that something's wrong, and this is all going from like 18 to 25. I had all these problems, and I was treating them with Western medicine and stuff, and I wasn't eating organic, and I was eating a lot of cooked food and sugars. And when I changed all that, it was like I'd get rid of one toxin and one ailment would go away. And then I'd change something else and another, and it started to make me feel so good that I realized that all my illnesses and ailments were my own doing, that I had caused them, not knowingly, but just, you know, coming from the 80s to the 90s, we didn't really focus on organic that much. It was there, but it wasn't so important as it is now. And when I changed, I realized, man, I was poisoning myself and I didn't even know it. And all those problems are gone. I don't have anything in my hands, and I don't have any back problems or ailments, or, you know, the little tumors and cysts, they just went away, just on their own within weeks of changing my diet and my lifestyle. And it wasn't just diet, it was like my whole mentality too. You know, the keeping healthy in my mind was really big too. We didn't know that.
I'm talking again with Morgan, and I explained our project to her. And I told her that we're looking for healing practitioners and stories of healing. And I thought that what she was doing was working as a healing practitioner for the land. What do you think about that statement?
I think that's a very correct statement. You know, we're not only healing ourselves with this way of agriculture, we're healing the land, we're trying to help heal the people, and I think that's what healing comes down to, is really it's just getting yourself back to that point of 100% there, you know, which is something that we all experience as a child, but then we go through these processes as we get older and we start to become more toxic and poisonous to ourselves, and we get to the stage where we need healing. But healing is really just, for us, is like working back to that normal, what really normal humans and land and animals and plants should be like. We have changed our diet drastically in the last few years. What we focus on is food, healing through food mostly. So the first step we took was we stopped all the toxins in our bodies and we started eating exclusively organic food, and for a while we only did raw food because we felt like that was what we needed to clean out all that junk that had been in there for years. We focused on really connecting the spirit with the body and the mind, and you know, recognizing that when we have heart problems, heartaches, that it's not just something emotional that we're experiencing, it's also a physical symptom that we're experiencing, and we can line those up with the chakras, which we like to do. And so what we do is we know that the heart chakra is green in color, so when we have heart problems, we go to dark leafy green foods, which will not only it'll lift your mood, but it'll give you all the nutrients you need to have a healthy heart, which just, you know, if you don't feel good, it's one thing to not feel good emotionally, but then to physically not feel good and to have all these things piling up, you know, it becomes a problem at that point. You know, everything's, so we start with the food to heal ourselves physically, emotionally, mentally, and spiritually, and go through it like that.
Thank you so much.
I believe that healing is the recreation of your homeostasis, regeneration of it. You have it when you get here, but it depletes over time. And so you have to get it back. It's the good energy, it gets rid of bad energy, just like good fats get rid of bad fats. My name is Amanda Elizabeth Flake.
And where are you from?
Berryville, Arkansas.
How do you know the things that you know?
A lifetime of study.
Michelle Camp, but let's say Mimi Camp, because that's how everybody knows me and that's how I sign everything. Are an incredible, gentle modality that can help all people, but I have a particular perspective. I like research a lot, and every single day I'm doing research to see how these particular essences affect people. When I give essences to a client, I feel confident that it's going to have some simple and beneficial effect. But if I give an essence to a medicine person, which I would say most of my students fit into that category, anything can happen. It can be a teacher for them, it can show them anything, it can take them anywhere, it can put them through some hard times. It can make them face something that they weren't facing. It puts them in process to come to know themselves much more deeply.
What do you do as far as healing or healing work on yourself on a daily?
I love water. And I love soaps, the different smells, aromatherapies. If you smell good smells and you feel good, you feel better.
Why did you originally get into massage therapy?
To heal people, to heal myself.
And you were called for massage therapy. That's interesting. What do you think sparked that?
That would be a friend of mine, Catherine. She was my next door neighbor. And last year, she and her son both burned to death in a fire. But they were my neighbors, and I first met Gabe, her son. He was making mud pies naked in the backyard, of course. And her ex-husband had a massage school, Massage Works school. And I just started checking it out, you know, from a distance. I spied a little closer, and Catherine went with me, you know, and I don't know, we started talking about it more and about how massage had healed her so much. She had been in a military family her whole life, a lot of structure, and me too, my family, a lot have been in the military, and a lot of structure in your life, and you meet these people that are so open-minded, and you start thinking new thoughts, and started learning about the chakras and meditation, spending more time on myself inside, and I thought I would give massage a try. So I signed up.
What is your opinion on that as far as, or the Chinese as a modality, Chinese medicine?
Well, it makes sense to me. It's logical, and I have had a little bit of experience with acupuncture. And so, for example, I was thrown off my horse and had an injury, and I went for physical therapy. And they did something, not exactly acupuncture, but they did something called needling. And I was astonished by the effect it had. It really did make the pain go away. So yeah, it seems that it works. That's one thing that learning Reiki has done. It's very, very aware of my energy and the energy flow. I can feel when I have the energy flowing through me and when it's just stagnant.
And do you have an opinion on some of the Eastern philosophy as far as chakras are concerned?
That's another thing. I mean, information about chakras goes back like hundreds and hundreds of years, and in different cultures as well. And this is another thing, it makes sense to me, but unfortunately there is absolutely no scientific evidence. I mean, I've looked and looked, but I haven't found anything that's convincing. So it's something else that we need to find a way of researching and investigating.
Oils are material dose. I mean, it's physical. It's very physical, and not only is it physical, the physical expression of the plant, the chemical expression of the plant, but it's highly, highly concentrated by distillation. So you have something that's very intense physically, and if you take it internally, you may only take 1 or 2 drops. What an essence is, it has no chemistry in it. It's very much akin to a homeopathic remedy. It is essentially the vibration of a plant. That's what it is, and so it tastes like water, unless it, and sometimes I preserve it with a little bit of alcohol. But that particular vibration triggers vibrations in the human body, so there's all kinds of responses happening on emotional levels, on physical levels as well, but they tend to be used more as psychological medicines. Well, I learned that stuff when I was in my 20s, probably because I was always interested in homeopathy. So they were getting very profound. Homeopathy stimulates very profound responses in the body. And what it's doing essentially is it's trying to remind the body of its own healing capacity. Like, we've got that. But somehow we have blocked at times. At times we block that healing capacity, which is innate. I got in Washington at some kind of library sale, and I started looking up all those little plants that were grown in this piece of land that had been bulldozed and destroyed. And it wasn't the normal lush natural scene. And I discovered when I started doing research that almost every single plant there was medicine. That they were trying to heal the earth, but they're also medicines for people. But then there are also so many of these, like the ocotillo, for instance. It calms down this agitation, reactivity, defensiveness, stuff like that. But it's a fire plant, and this is a fire plant. So it has fire, and it will stimulate when there is deficiency. Like, I'll use a little bit of ocotillo in a reproductive formula because it stimulates circulation here and in the whole body, that kind of thing. But the way it stimulates is not like a drug. It's gentle and balanced. It's interesting to look at the difference between herbs and essences, because I can make essences with things that are poisonous and things that are not considered medicines. And looking at how many things here, because we're sort of still a frontier here, even though it's a frontier that's about to be destroyed, you know. But Native peoples used everything here. it seems like. You start looking further and further and further. And most plants have some influence on the physiology of the body to shift it a little bit one way or the other.
Stress, it affects the immune system in different ways depending on the intensity of the stress and the duration of the stress. So in some cases, stress will impair the immune system so that, if you've been stressed, often you catch the bug that's going around because your immune system is impaired. It's not fighting off the bugs the way it should. On the other hand, you can get to a situation where stress can aggravate the immune system, make it overactive, and that will lead to the autoimmune diseases. So the immune system will start, instead of just fighting invaders and bugs and things that you don't want, it will start working on your own tissue, and that's the link between stress and how it can affect the autoimmune response.
What hormones are released that create this either over anxiety in the body or where it would prohibit your autoimmune system from being vibrant enough to help?
Yeah, the main hormones are noradrenaline or norepinephrine and cortisol. Those have been shown to bind to various immune cells and alter their function. Yeah.
And what happens when there's too much cortisol in your system? What are the immediate reactions to the physiology of the body?
With too much cortisol, one thing is, as I mentioned before, impairment of the immune system so that you're not so well protected. And then cortisol, too much cortisol too much of the time. It can cause inflammation as well. That's the other arm of the effects on the immune response. If you have too much cortisol, like more with chronic stress, then it can cause inflammation, and you'll be prone maybe to inflammatory bowel disease, arthritis. It doesn't cause those things, but it can aggravate them and stop you from healing.
What does stress do to the brain?
To the brain? Well, it's basically the sympathetic parasympathetic system. It's the autonomic nervous system. So stress is going to increase the sympathetic activity, which will cause release of adrenaline, noradrenaline, and will cause your heart rate to increase and cause you to become anxious or fearful. Yeah, whereas the parasympathetic system acts through the vagus nerve to cause you to relax. It's called rest and digest.
What would you say would be good practices that you have used that you think would be important to other people?
I love the meditation for universal peace.
Okay.
That is, you think of people that you love, only people that you love, and let the love build up inside your heart. And then you take that love and you think about the people that you hate, the people that have hurt you, and you send that love to them. Because if you can't have the universal love and share it, then how could the world?
What is your definition or your concept of what healing is?
Healing is being vibrant, being thriving on a physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual level. Healing is feeling good about yourself and letting that radiate out. To heal Mother Earth, to heal all of humanity, to heal the stars and the heavens beyond. Everyone is a universe within a universe. The little cells of our body is a universe in itself. And then our whole body is a whole nother macrocosm. And we on the earth, we're the microcosm, the earth is a macrocosm. You have to be vigilant and conscious and aware of what you tell yourself. Because when you speak the words I am, you are invoking divine energy. So when you put that word after it, make sure it's something that you want to embody.
Healing starts inside. You have to want to. If you don't want to heal yourself, you won't heal. That's why sugar pills, isn't it 50% of the pills we take are sugar? they wouldn't work if we didn't believe it would. You know, Dumbo's feather didn't work because it was magic. It worked because he believed it was magic. If you believe in the magic, it will be there. I think that the conscious act of doing anything to help yourself does matter.
So where are we today?
Well, you're in Beaumont, Texas, small little town east, due east actually of Houston.
And
you're in Basic Foods, our health food store. I'm the general manager, also one of the partners in the limited partnership of this store was born. And you know, our mission is always has been to be about trying to find the right foods, the right supplements to really work on health needs.
You know, we met yesterday and we talked, and you had mentioned something that I thought was kind of important. You guys do a great deal of research, collectively, the both of you. Why is research so important to you guys?
Well, it's really important to, well, number one, this industry isn't regulated by the FDA. So when we bring in supplement items, we feel it's our responsibility to police what we bring in, because we want to be able to sell something that we feel very comfortable in offering to the public. And this industry, you can buy something out there that, you know, says it's an example ginkgo, and you find out that there's no ginkgo in it, and that's not being helpful.
I did lose my health when I was young, about the age of 30, at a dramatic stage and with a dramatic diagnosis, in my opinion. And I began to hear contradictions in the answers to health, and so I had to start looking at alternatives, because the things I did try didn't end well. I lost my health and I had to find the answers. I still wanted to live. And what I had been taught and brought up was not enough. It wasn't working. So one of the naturopaths that I met along the way, he wrote a book called The Battle for Health is Over pH. And I was already practicing that without even knowing that's what I was doing. And 95% of the diseases were told from one source, dwell in an acidic environment, and cancer just one of those things. And so the other 5% can be too alkaline. But when your body is in that perfect pH state, then it doesn't leave a hospitable environment for any of the disease states. I went further to find out that it was the toxins and chemicals and stress in my life that was contributing to the acidic environment of my cells. I began to seek out ways to turn that around. And food was and nutrition was the first place I was guided.
When I stepped into this business 19 years ago, I came from a very medical model. And, you know, we passed out pills and we thought we were curing people. We use that word curing all the time, but we were really just putting a patch on it. But I didn't see that 18 years ago. I was getting into this industry and having all the reps, predominantly the reps from the supplement industry, coming in and talking about supplementation and how supplements hit the cellular level, and just learning that it's all about nutrition to the body or food to the body that allows the body to heal itself. And so that was kind of my awakening, and it became very important that if we were going to sell to the public, that we sell the best quality. And so we've continued to look as new products come in, and years ago we had our shelves full of what are called isolates in the vitamin department. You'd pick up a vitamin and it was an isolate. It was an isolated A and B and D and C. It wasn't coming from food. And we thought vitamins are good, but then we learned that there's the next step to that, and that's food. And so now you have a generation of vitamins that are actually food in a capsule. Well, your body's going to see food 100%, absorb 100% of it, use what it wants, get rid of the rest. It's not going to do that with isolates. If you're lucky and they put a nice, citrate on the backside of this isolate, maybe you'll absorb 20%. So our concern was, where'd the other 80 go,
Well, tell me first, what is the significance of working with Chinese medicine? How is that a helpful modality?
I think one of the big things that it kind of can serve people with in this day and age is like chronic health issues, that there's a lot of things that a lot of people suffer from that mainstream doctors can't find solutions for, like digestive issues or anxiety, and they get put on medications or very like generic forms of treatment that are not supportive to them in the long run, or not great like long-term solutions. And Chinese medicine can really provide something kind of special there. It can really kind of go into the root of the issue and kind of reset the system and strengthen it. I think another aspect is that it really treats things through tonifying and strengthening. There's this concept of like using herbs to strengthen the body, so sort of in the way that food does, but even in a deeper, more substantial way. Western doctors don't always think of things in that way. They're kind of thinking of like altering the chemistry and making adjustments.
We're at my Thai yoga massage room inside the gym in Indian, Oklahoma.
Okay. And you are a Thai massage practitioner, is that correct?
That is correct. Thai yoga massage compared to Swedish or deep tissue massage is so different, primarily because doesn't use oil. Mm-hmm. It's performed on a mat, on the floor, and there's at least 6 elements to it compared to your regular deep tissue.
6 elements?
6 elements.
Oh, okay.
A traditional Thai yoga massage. You have the leaning pressure, where the practitioner uses her hands and her body weight to calm the muscles down. And you also have reflexology. You have acupressure and the opening of the stem lines. You have yoga, and you have stretching. Thai massage, well, according to the books that I've read, for a person to be healthy, they want you to have a balance of your mental state, your spiritual being, and your physical being. So as a Thai yoga massage practitioner, our goal is to help you on the physical side of it. Person has to be in charge of his physical activity, what he eats, and as a practitioner, helps to, complete that physical being by improving a person's mobility. But anyway, when I was a lot younger and was traveling to Thailand a lot, I always seeked out a Thai massage. And when I came to the States 24 years ago, I couldn't find it. I had to travel to the East or West Coast to get a Thai massage. So when this invitation came, I said, I'm learning, and I'll teach my husband. Then my husband can do it for me. Never learned. So I had to find other people to work on. And I have been a member of the gym for 8 years. So I started working on fellow gymmates. And everybody started asking, when am I going to start giving one professionally? First of all, Thai massage, whenever you get it, it's not like your Swedish massage where you kind of fall asleep on the table and then you get lathered with oil and you wake up later and your skin feels smooth. Thai massage, you get discomforts along the way.
Okay.
But then after that, soreness that you had before you went on the mat, it goes away. That's my personal experience. And when I leave the mat, it's like I'm energized. Okay. And my joints are lighter or more open. So I always, crave for that feeling. Because that's the only massage or form of massage that leaves me with that feeling.
You're going to stretch them.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to do pressure points on their body.
Mm-hmm.
Does that work with their energetic lines of their body?
Yes, when I do the thumbing process, I work on the major energy lines of the body from the legs to the back and to the underarms.
Does that hurt?
Some of it hurts. It's personally when it's done on me, when somebody's working on my leg, especially on the outer energy line, that provides discomfort. But then after that, I feel good.
And that loosens it up?
Yes. From what I was taught, whenever there's a discomfort, that means you are hitting a blockage there. Mm-hmm. So, when you're doing the stem line work, you're going one way and you go back out the same way. So when you hit that point where there's a blockage, that discomfort is supposed to release that energy and you go forward. But then you want to go back and release it all the way out. The traditional massage is done in sequence. It's almost like Ashtanga yoga. You work on one part first, and one sequence leads you to the next step. So when we start out with Thai massage, you work on the legs. You start with the leaning pressure first, kind of calm the muscles down. And then you work on reflexology on the sole of the foot.
And that's pushing your thumb?
Pushing my thumb, or the joint of my thumb, on the different reflexology points of the sole of your foot. And after that, you work on the ankle mobility, and then you start working on opening up the sun lines. You have 3 major sun lines inside your thighs, and there's 3 major sun lines outside your legs. So you work on it alternately, then you work yourself up towards the back. Moving the energy.
Okay.
Or opening the energy lines is our goal.
Perfect. Do you think that Thai massage is a good stress reliever?
I believe so. Because, when your energy is increased, then you automatically get rid of stress.
I think I've always been kind of fascinated with the way things work and kind of understanding there's more than meets the eye or more than our kind of scientific understanding of the way things work. Having a deeper understanding that's more dynamic and feels more real to me. I think, I've worked with Western herbs for a really long time, in my shop here, and I've always loved that. I love working with plants, and I think I found kind of Western traditions because it's such a broken tradition, that Western herbs kind of only got popular again in the 60s, and our knowledge is kind of broken. So it felt like a lot of Western herbs had a limit as to what you could understand and how to treat people with them. I just kind of felt really working with people with complex issues, I couldn't get where I wanted, and Chinese medicine really offered that. It's at least a 2,000-year-old lineage of kind of solid understanding of what plants can do for people and what the needles can do, and that was really exciting to me.
Western herbs are used more for...
They don't have that concept of herbs to strengthen and tonify, you know, like they're kind of also using herbs to just alter physiology, like, oh, this treats a cold, oh, this will just calm you down, this will deal with a stomach ache, you know, it's kind of more symptomatic treatment. And Chinese medicine can kind of, I mean, I love it because it's like you're looking at, I kind of think of it as like weather patterns in a body. Like I'm able to kind of come to a person with diagnostic skills and look at all the patterns going on for someone, and it's almost like weather patterns, and kind of like treating by addressing those patterns in the body to kind of bring homeostasis back into the body. So it's this kind of very more dynamic way of looking at things and seeing. I mean, I think when people come in with health issues, they feel like in a state of chaos around what's going on and all these different random things that I'm experiencing. I don't know what's going on, and Chinese medicine can really offer this kind of bigger understanding of why all those different random things are happening and kind of treat it foundationally.
Western herbs is more like a Western philosophy in how somebody treats their body. They go for symptoms.
Yes.
And Chinese medicine goes for what is going on with the body and how do we help it balance.
Right.
We're not trying to take away symptoms.
Right.
We're helping it tone what is its strong.
And I think that Western herbalism does like want that, and it's leaning towards it and looking for that, but it kind of doesn't. It's kind of falling on plant constituents and that more Western model. So but it does grab from Ayurveda and Chinese medicine, so it does kind of pull from a lot of traditions. So I don't mean to like totally, knock it down. I think that it can offer some of that. It's just that the Chinese medicine really kind of goes deep into that, and I love that. I definitely feel like a lot of people come for treatment that have tried a lot of other things, and they kind of like what I was just saying. They feel confused about what's going on with many things. Like they have digestive complaints, they have anxiety. They have skin issues. It's like almost like, I mean, I think in this day and age, people are suffering from overload of everything. So it's like, it's almost like their bodies are in a state of chaos that they don't know, what's going on. And so they have a lot of chronic issues or unexplained things happening.
When you say unexplained, is that another term for autoimmune?
Yeah, that's a great, I was kind of thinking something like that in my mind. Yeah, autoimmune is big for sure. It feels like people that come to see you or see me in practice are more either at their wit's end or sort of dedicated to like really doing something about their issue. And then people that come into the shop, there's a lot of different people that come to the shop, but there may be, a lot of people just come in for fun or just for kind of like things to kind of support their health in a more general way because they want to take care of themselves. Where you get like low-income people that can't afford treatment, but they're looking for something affordable that is going to help them.
Okay. So if someone was going to come in for an exam, we want to do a brief overview of what they can expect so they're not intimidated by the process.
Definitely start with like an intake form, and then we kind of do an interview where I look over the intake and ask questions around that. And then the big kind of thing with Chinese medicine is the tongue and the pulse. So did you want me to give you a little demo? Okay. Yeah, you can just rest your hand. I don't know if you can catch this enough. But, it's basically just I'm using 3 fingers and this kind of placement on the wrist. And each position kind of correlates with a different organ in the body.
Each finger?
Yeah, each finger, sorry, thanks. Correlates with a different organ, and also...
So this finger correlates to...
See, this is the right, so this is the lung, this is the stomach spleen, and this is the kidney.
How am I doing?
I hadn't actually because I was talking. Doing good. But I would do both sides because this side would be the heart, liver, and kidney as well. So basically just kind of gathering information about where the chi is with each organ, you know? And it can be something like, you know, that the pulse feels really kind of wiry and tight in this position, so the chi is stuck or stagnated here, or maybe the chi is really, really weak feeling. So it's just like different kind of ways of feeling for the chi for those organs. Stick out your tongue, and the whole tongue says a lot. Like your tongue is a little bit swollen, super common. That's a little bit of damp accumulation in the body. The spleen chi, that's talking about the spleen chi. Also the color of the tongue, like color's pretty good on your tongue, but if it's really pale, that might be some blood deficiency, or if it's super red, that might tell me about heat in the body. And then also like positioning, like the back of the tongue can tell me about the kidneys or the lower part of the body, and the tip tells me about the tongue or the chest and lung and heart area. Interesting.
And then you would use the needles then to hit different meridians?
Right, different channels of chi, different meridians, and different parts of the body. So like if I saw a lot of heat in the tip of the tongue, that might mean that there's some heat agitating the heart, and maybe I would try to clear some of that heat. Or, you know, since you have a little damp accumulation, maybe I'd try to help support your spleen. And
so you would do that either with acupuncture, so helping rewire the body, and or an herb to strengthen that where there is a weakness.
Yeah, and I think the nice thing about Chinese medicine is it's just it's kind of like encouraging your own body's resources to find homeostasis. You know, it's not like trying to take over the driver's wheel. It's trying to kind of bolster your body's own resources to do its thing naturally, you know, and just encourage it in that direction until it can kind of have its own momentum. Actually, really big thing is like the more information that you can give about what you're experiencing, the better, even if it doesn't seem like it relates to that health issue, because we're looking at like patterns in the body of, you know, what's going on.
So just a slight demonstration of cupping,
like here, because that'd be more the place to put it. So you definitely have to be careful with this because you're dealing with fire and people's bodies and hair and stuff. So definitely takes some training and practice to kind of get confident around it.
I'd like you to be very confident.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm basically creating a suction with the fire and then popping it right on there.
Used for?
So cupping is a way to kind of get circulation throughout the tissue of the body. I mean, it's used a lot with like sports injuries, a lot of times in the back along the spine and neck when there's like pain.
It is not painful.
Yeah, it actually feels really good. And there's different ways of doing it too. You can put oil on someone's back and do slide cupping where you move it around, and it's actually a lot like getting a massage. You know, it feels quite good. Most people enjoy it. And then it's kind of interesting because it can also be a diagnostic tool where, first of all, it creates these kind of marks that look like bruises, but they're not bruises. They don't hurt like bruises. But that mark can kind of tell us about what's going on in the body. Like if the mark disappears and kind of gets pale afterwards, that kind of says blood deficiency. If it's really dark red, that means blood stasis. So it's actually a diagnostic tool. And that's one interesting thing about Chinese medicine is like everything you're doing and the way the body responds is another diagnostic tool that kind of gives more information. So I'll just pull them off now. Looks good. Doesn't look like you have any stagnation.
Let's see. Good.
Yeah, they're just. You're gathering and investigating all this information and trying to see a bigger picture. And I think our Western minds often want, like, what does this mean? What does this mean? These very kind of specific answers. And the interesting thing about in Eastern medicine is that it's all relational and it's all kind of like a bigger picture of how things relate and work together. So I like to gather all my information, put the needles in, and then go sit with the information and kind of like make a list of everything I see and look at the patterns of what's going on and relating, and then I kind of have this deeper understanding, or start to get an understanding of what I see, and then come back and say, you know, this is what I see, and this is how the parts relate, and why this is happening, and that, and what your pulses are telling me, kind of then.
What do you do as a practice of healing in your daily life?
Yeah, and that's definitely a constant challenge, you know, because I can certainly get off track really easily. And I feel great when I am on track, so it's like, why would I ever let myself get off track? But I mean, I love Qigong. I think I don't always practice it, but when I do, it's so enriching, and I love that. Yoga. You know, I also go to a lot of other people for different support, like body work or even therapy. I have a big love of somatic work, somatic experiencing.
Tell me about somatic experiencing.
It's a kind of trauma healing, but it doesn't have to be just for trauma. It's a way of regulating the nervous system. So it's a way of finding stability for your nervous system. Again, it's for more kind of wholehearted living, you know. So we all have sort of triggers of things that stop us, and it helps to kind of nurture the nervous system back into balance. It's sort of potentially taking triggering events and finding ways of supporting kind of resources around what triggers you, and encouraging just tiny bits of the stimulation in the nervous system of what's triggering, and then a lot of kind of positive blue's a term they use, positive kind of resources, right, kind of with that triggering point, so that there's sort of a natural pendulating between what's stimulating and what's supportive. So it's almost like, you know, encouraging the nervous system to find that flow.
But this is support from within.
Yes,
You're not
absolutely.
talking support outside of the community, support within.
Yes, right, yeah.
So how you tell your story to yourself,
Yeah.
where you're feeling it in your body.
Yeah, a lot of it's somatic based, so it's feeling based, and a lot of, you know, kind of tapping into the soma of the body as opposed to just the mental story. I mean, you kind of tap into both, but really stimulating the feeling sense in the body.
And getting mindful of that so that you can
Watching
regulate
it
your
and
own.
allowing it to kind of show up in a way that feels safe.
And that's
So-
something that you also work with in a daily practice.
Yeah, and I work with in a daily practice, and I also see different therapists that do that. I've seen people that do like actual therapists, and I've seen body workers that do that into their practice. Like, it can be folded into a lot of different forms. It's kind of an exciting field of work.
Yeah, so anybody who has problems with stress, either physical problems like high blood pressure, or more emotional problems like anxiety, or even people who just want to have more control, and people who are able to just help people optimize what they can do in the performance, whether it's in music or acting, or even just relationships. Performance in everything can be improved by having more control over your autonomic nervous system. And you can do that in different ways. It's not one size fits all. For some people, biofeedback is good. For some people, Reiki is good, or other forms of energy healing. For some people, the equine facilitated learning works for them. So there are various ways. I also do tension release exercises that help the body. It causes the body to shake, and you can just shake all the tension off that has been accumulating in your body. So there are many different ways for different people to get the same result, to be able to get out of this stress response and get into what I call neutral, or I call it also relaxed alertness, where you're relaxed but you're still present, and people will be able to see that they can do way more than they thought they could do.
Do you feel like this is a healing place, or a very healthy, whole place to raise your family, your kids?
I believe so. We both came from the city environment before this, and moved here and started our family, and there's nothing better than to walk around the grounds and see the ducks and the fish and the rabbits and the, just the open, not stuck inside watching TV, just being outside enjoying the nature, plus walking over and coming for a swim,
Amazing to see, like, my son Trice, who is all about getting dirty and getting in the ponds and playing with, digging, playing with, fish and ducks and feeding them, and, he's really outdoorsy and really appreciates, where he's at. He's the type that, he can go outside, you can leave him outside and go dig in the sand and play for hours. Versus my other two sons who, really live a big city life, and they come here and it's hard to get them out of their element of computers and TV and video games and, all of that stuff. And it's amazing. It takes a little bit, but once they pop out of it, they're all about wanting to go fishing, wanting to go camping, setting up tents. Like, it's just amazing how it happens. And, not that they're not happy playing video games, but there's a different kind of joy that they get out from what they do here versus what they do in the city.
Equine assisted psychotherapy, it's different than other types of therapy. Obviously, here we are outside. And if you'd just be willing to kind of take a minute and kind of look around and take a deep breath and just take this in. It's everywhere, actually.
Right.
Oh yeah, he's letting me in his yard.
He's letting me in his hula hoop.
He's letting me in his hula hoop. And clear your lungs, take some deep breaths. I might just ask you to consider what might you like to happen right now with Oriel? Do you think he trusts you?
I think he does, yeah.
Are you trustworthy? Well, he's willing to enter into a relationship with you. How's that feel?
Good.
The work with horses, we were looking at heart rate variability, and the oscillations of the heart rhythm are in three ranges. There's very low frequency, and high frequency. High frequency is parasympathetic relaxation. Low frequency is sympathetic and parasympathetic, and not very much is known about very low frequency. When we made measurements on the horses, they had most of their oscillations in the very low frequency range. And then when we had horses and humans interacting with each other, we've done it in three different scenarios. We've done it in Arizona, where we had people tuning into the horse's energy field. We did it in Tucson, actually, where we had people sending feelings of appreciation towards the horse. And we've done it in California, where we had people doing mindful grooming. And in all cases, these very low frequency oscillations that we see in the horse's heart were seen in the humans, significantly more than if they hadn't been with the horses. And recently, a few studies have come out showing that if people don't have very much of this very low frequency range in their heart rhythm, they're prone to inflammation and PTSD. And so that could be one explanation why equine therapy is so popular with people with PTSD. Perhaps they're getting this different rhythm in their hearts that is affecting their emotions. It's just like when you bring two magnets together. You remember when you were at school and you had a magnet and you put iron filings around and they made that pattern, and then you bring another magnet and it all gets disrupted? Yes, it's just like that. I think that one person's energy can affect another person's energy. And there's something, actually, I was speaking to somebody yesterday who was, she's working as an apprentice for somebody who does equine facilitated learning. And she was saying one of the exercises they do is called heart breathing. And they do it with horses. So as they breathe out, they imagine that their breath is going from their heart to the horse's heart, and as they breathe in, that they're receiving the horse's breath. So, yeah, that's an interesting thing about transfer of energy and how it makes you feel. And I think it would be interesting to maybe make some measurements on people while they're doing that, and on horses, because I make measurements on people and horses simultaneously.
My name is Chris Casper. I'm from Rocky Ford, Colorado. And
how did we meet?
We met by pulling motorhomes up. I'm here with some women friends. We wanted to get away, see the beautiful Colorado changing of the leaves, and we have done a lot of bonding, laughing, crying, and having a wonderful time. I was working with a physician in the hospital who volunteered with an organization, nonprofit medical organization, called Operation Smile outside of Virginia, USA. And it's the largest medical organization that repairs cleft lip and palates and facial deformities of children in underdeveloped countries.
Wow.
But they don't know the depth of what this organization does in transforming children's lives. In third world countries, they're not allowed to go to school if they have any physical deformities. In Brazil, they have parents will put bags over the children's heads as they go to the market. So they're always shunned, demoralized, ridiculed, families suffer. And so what this organization does is they go in with volunteer plastic surgeons, nurses, medical records, and high school students, which makes this a very unique organization where they go in 1 week and they do close to over anywhere between 100 to 150 life-changing surgeries that only take 45 minutes to repair a cleft lip and to where this child now can be a productive individual in their country, where before that they would just be isolated and shunned.
I try not to make it like a crazy active thing because I'm just one little chick with no thyroid. And I got shit to take care of.
Would you consider part of this store a spiritual store?
Absolutely. Absolutely, in every sense of the way. I mean, our herbs, I feel, are spiritual. The oils, I feel, are spiritual.
The candles?
The candles, the stage, the incense, I think all
Stones.
of it. I mean, it's all intent anyway, so I think
when we make our tinctures, it's a certain day of the month that we make them, so it's not randomly when we make things,
And why is a specific day of the month important?
Remember how I said science goes along with it? Yeah. Well, we make our tinctures on the new moon, and it's because of the magnetic pull. But originally there was a spiritual purpose behind it, and now science has just caught up and said, hey, this actually works,
So the vibrations.
Yes, ma'am.
When the barriers between the person who's designated as the one receiving healing and the one who is designated as being the healer completely break down, and the universal energy comes in, and there's a chance to change the configuration of atoms, which also changes how the person feels on the table and the person who's doing the actual, I hate to use the word manipulation, but the one who's in there who's a change agent, basically. I see this in a really big sense. I don't think it's just the internet that enabled certain revolutions to take place. I think it's also the spread of the acceptance of healing arts technology and use. And I think that in times when there's more of this kind of energy work, that you have a chance for a more free society, whatever the kind of society is. So it's way beyond the individual treatment room or the individual session. It's much bigger than that. And I also feel that, freedom from suffering and pain is not a privilege. It's more of a right. It's big.
Yes, it's a big question.
It's definitely global, not just local. All these things are very simple, but they're not easy.
I think to me healing is hope. I think when you begin to feel, you begin to heal, you begin to feel hope, for the future. And so for me, I think it's that simple. I think people come into a treatment center like ours and some of the other great work that's being done, and that's all they want to do is feel at the end of that treatment that there's some hope for their future. And so, and if they come out with that, I would say, they're on a healing path. You know that it's a one day at a time thing. It's a step-by-step process. And so you're not going to get all the answers in 30 or 35 days or 45 days. But if you have hope that you can get those answers as you progress in life, then God, that's healing.
Because we are all responsible for ourselves. Either we're a victim and everything else, everybody does it to us, or we step up to the plate and we're responsible for helping ourselves heal and feel well and healthy and vibrant.
And follow that impulse. Follow that urge, wherever it leads you, and find your truth. Find your path. That's hopefully what this documentary will inspire. And hopefully it makes you smile or laugh or cry, but to feel.
It's the life I lead. Yeah, it's the life for me. There's a life I lead. It's the life for me. 'Cause I'm right here and you are near me. We are one here. The bass quietly drumming. It's just you and me standing closely. And you said you see it's a gift feeling whole. 'Cause I'm right here and you are near. It's music to my ears. The song is playing. Today I see you, 'cause today I hear you too. You are green, I am blue. While we watch the river strumming, I love your voice, my dear. It's a war I can't hear. We were living in fear. The symbol was burning. I'm right here and you are near. It's music to my ears. A new song is playing. I am here. You are there. Forever into. I'm so glad to meet you. Let it out, let it out. I wanna hear everything you have to say. So moving on, where we belong. It's just you and me, and we are standing closely.